Hi, I'm Gary Katz. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you're probably wondering what happened to my shop. Well, I've moved, and this is my temporary shop. I'm building a new one, so pretty soon I'm going to need doors. Lots of doors and gates too. That's why I was so excited when I got my hands on Festool's new Domino XL. A couple weeks ago, a carpenter sent me an email asking if I thought it was worth buying a Domino XL. He had to build only 2 doors on an upcoming job. I told him I never bought a tool for just one job. I invested in tools knowing that once I had them, I'd use them for countless other jobs too, and I'd come up with ways of using them that I hadn't even considered until I got my hands on the tool. The Domino XL fits perfectly into that category. I've already used it to build rustic shelving made from reclaimed 2x lumber. And with these tenons, believe me, you don't need to run crooked boards through a joiner. You don't need tight glue joints, you just need tight mortise and tenon joints. And that's exactly what a Domino is. Whether it's the original DF500 or this supersized machine, Dominoes are made to cut simple mortise and tenon joints. They make what was once a time-consuming task easy and fast. Both mortise machines have index pins, but the new XL700 has 3 pins on each side of the cutter, so you can automate your tenon locations quickly and accurately. Both machines will cut mortises in several sizes. Change the bit size, change the mortise width, and you'll find a tenon for every need. Some carpenters have trouble holding the Domino steady. With the XL, you won't have a problem. The handle is set farther forward so you have a rock-steady grip on the tool and plenty of surface area resting on the workpiece. Always give the dust collector a chance to clear the mortise as the cutter's spinning. That's a critical part of the Domino's effectiveness. You don't want to cut the same wood chips over and over. Dust collection helps the bit stay sharp and keeps these deep mortises clean and clear. I could spend hours talking about the Domino XL, but I really want to talk about making doors. Before I start cutting up material for my doors, I thought it might be smart to visit a pro door shop and see how they do it. So come with me and let's go visit Robby Myer in Northern California.
I make my stiles and rails out of regular 3/4 inch material for interior doors. Take 2 pieces and laminate it together, I end up with an 1.5 inch net. If I want to get down to 1 3/8, all I've got to do is a finished sand of a 1/16 on each side, and I'm down to 1 3/8. I like to glue them up in stacks because it uses less clamps, and I can glue up a whole door of stiles and rails in one clamping. Okay, so now we'll lay out our Domino marks for our stiles and rails. Transfer the line across both stiles. And now I'm going to transfer the lines from the stiles across to the rails. Beautiful. Before the Domino XL, you couldn't make a mortise hole like that in a small shop like this. This is a 14mm by 140mm tenon. Monster tenon, perfect for building doors and gates. There are other sizes available, but for building doors and gates, this is the one. So now I'm going to clamp this up. We want to take the test clamp all the way through. Make sure everything gets nice and tight. You want to see this seam between your stiles and rails close up nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Festool 2200 and I'm going to route a groove in here to accept the panel. So here I'll just make some layout marks to help me set up the router. It's always a good idea to make your first cuts on a practice piece before you dive into your finished stiles and rails. So now I'll just test the fit, make sure the panel is going to fit, and I'm happy with the centering on the stile, and I am. And what I'm using here is 2 sheets of 1/4 inch faced back to back. We'll glue those together in a minute. Now to cut this groove here, to accept the panels in the door, I'm using the Festool OF 2200. It's a monster router that gives me the power to be able to make this groove cut in the stiles and rails in one pass. It's a little bit unconventional. Most doors are made with a cope and stick type of assembly, which will create this groove to accept the panel. But by using this router and the Domino XL, we can cut out the heavy machinery that's needed to make a cope and stick, and we can do this kind of stuff in any garage, workshop, or job site. The OF 2200 is a magnificent machine for this because it's got so much power. Even with a small bit, sometimes you're taking a lot of material out to make a deep groove like this, and it's really nice to have the power of the 2200. Okay, now before I actually pull the trigger and start cutting wood, I'm going to run the router without it running around my pattern so I can get familiar with any hang-ups that I might have before I'm actually cutting. There's one right there. So I'm going to know I'm going to come into this a little bit slower so that I can work my way around that without disrupting the router. It's also nice to know that I'm clearing all of my clamps and that there's no other obstructions in the way. Okay, what I'm doing here now is I'm putting a larger bearing on the router bit, and what that effectively is going to do is shallow up my cut. I'm going to make this first pass a little shallower, and I'm going to do it counterclockwise in a climb cut, which most people say that you shouldn't do. But I'm going to do it that way in this application to make this first pass the shallow cut, because fur has a tendency to tear out, and going in a climb cut pattern, there's less likely to be tear out. You got to pay attention when you're making a climb cut and make sure you've got a real good hold on the router so you can have control. You only need to make a small cut, very shallow. You're just trying to protect the wood from tear out. So now we'll make the second pass, this time clockwise, with the machine set up to make the full depth of the cut. Now we're ready to pull this apart, get the panels in, but before we do that, let's get some dimensions of the panels. Apply a nice even coat on both panels, or both sides of your panels that are going to be glued together. Let it dry. Once it's dry to the touch, just put them together. All right, so now I'll just pull it apart. like a glove. A quick chamfer of the panel with the RO90 makes the assembly of the last style a lot easier. Well, there it is. Now all I've got to do is disassemble it, glue it up, and clamp it together. And thanks to the Domino XL and the OF 2200, I got a door.
Now that's exactly why I wanted to visit with Robby before making my own doors. I never would have thought of using a rabbiting bit to make a groove for the panels. Keep an eye out for more articles and videos on using the Domino XL. Pretty soon I'll be making gates for my driveway, doors for my house, more shelving, who knows what else. I want to thank Festool for providing the tools we used in this program, and I want to remind viewers to read the instruction manuals that come with power tools. Don't attempt to do anything that doesn't feel comfortable for you, and always work safely.